So now I'd like to bring up one of our longtime partners with the Appleseed Project and one of the most outstanding women on the planet. Also has a fabulous, fabulous brownstone in New York City where she does everything from laboratory to stores to teaching to living. And so it's a great honor to welcome Sylvie Beljanski to the stage.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to put my... Very good, thank you. Hello, everybody. It was my great pleasure and my great honor to be invited in the past several years by both Anne Fonfa and Annie Brown. So I am very pleased to see that their legacy has been able to continue and carry on thanks to John, Joanna, and Julia. And Annie Brown and Anne Fonfa were friends, so the fact that it is a group of friends was decided to get together and carry on with this legacy, I think is very, very important. So, how do I get the slide to work? Yes. So we are going to today to speak about, no, this is not the first one. If you don't mind to go to the very beginning. Thank you. So we are going to speak about cancer stem cells. How many of you have heard about cancer stem cells? Yeah, not everybody. And yet you are all concerned with cancer. Otherwise, you would not be here. So we are going to speak about what are cancer stem cells. And my presentation is about winning the war on cancer stem cells. As Dr. Goodyear mentioned, the war on cancer started officially with Nixon in 1971 with the famous Act on Cancer. And yet, the numbers have not been good since we unleashed a lot of federal dollars on this famous war on cancer. The numbers are actually growing. The number of deaths by cancer is actually growing in an exponential way. And it is expected that we are going to have over 2 million deaths of new cases of cancer in 2024, which is kind of record. So we have been fighting for the end of the cancer epidemic for years. I mean, the first march against breast cancer started in 1995. There was a ribbon that was created back in 1992, and the end of breast cancer epidemic is not happening. The good news is that as there are more people diagnosed with cancer, there is also more people surviving with cancer. Unfortunately for those people, it is important to know that when you have had cancer once, you are at a greater risk of having another cancer recurrence, cancer metastasis. About 1 out of 5 people with cancer had already had cancer previously. So there are very legitimate questions for those people about this recurrence of cancer. Why all this cancer, is coming back? And there is, when is it going to come back? About 2 to 3 years is mostly the biggest time frame for reoccurrence of cancer. Will my cancer come back necessarily? Well, not always, and not everybody can predict that for sure. But there are some stats which are out there. And for example, glioblastoma, which is brain cancer, will always come back. It is important to know also that some other cancer, like ovarian cancer, has a very high rate of coming back. Prostate cancer, on the other hand, has a much lower risk of recurrence and metastasis. Will the recurrent cancer be more aggressive? Yes, it's very, very possible. So why is cancer coming back? Well, there are two reasons, main reasons. One is the cause to the treatment itself and chemotherapy. And I know it sounds like a little bit counterintuitive, but I'm going to show you some studies backing that. And the other reason is that chemotherapy doesn't destroy all cancer cells. And there are some cancer cells that do resist, and they are called cancer stem cells. So chemotherapy may by itself induce metastasis because it creates some kind of low-grade systemic inflammation that is going to induce cancer. And I mean, more specifically for breast cancer, this mechanism has been well documented. The theory also is that it is linked to, this inflammation is linked to the reoccurrence, I mean, not reoccurrence, but the fact that the cancer stem cells are becoming more alive and are going to travel within the blood. So what are cancer stem cells? Cancer stem cells are the embryonic cancer cells. Everything starts with an embryo. Cancer cells, like healthy cells, starts by being stem cells. You have heard, I'm sure, about stem cell therapy, and that's great. Stem cell therapy is about healthy stem cells which are injected into the body to create a new generation of cells. Good when they are healthy. But what if they are cancerous? And that's where we have cancer stem cells, which are embryonic cancer cells and have the ability, like any embryo, to become whatever kind of cancer cells. Liver cancer cells, prostate cancer cells, breast cancer cells. Who knows? It will depend the future, how it's going to develop. So what happens when you have cancer and you are going under chemotherapy? Well, in a tumor, you have regular adult cancer cells, and you have also some cancer stem cells. And you go under chemotherapy, and the tumor shrinks. And the oncologist says, hey, you are doing well. You are responding well to the chemotherapy. The tumor is shrinking. But what he is destroying is the least aggressive cells, the adult cells, which are not going to, survive the chemotherapy, while the young one, the embryonic one, are going to survive. And they can stay for a long time in the body. And something, someday, like a systemic inflammation or a trauma or something may trigger those stem cells to develop again a new tumor. That's the theory of cancer stem cells. And that's how metastases are currently explained. So chemotherapy doesn't kill cancer stem cells. That doesn't mean that we cannot do anything about it. Maybe that means only that we should look somewhere else and look for compounds able to address those very aggressive cancer stem cells. And maybe we should look into the realm of natural medicine if chemotherapy is not able to do it. And I want to stress that everybody from day one should learn about cancer stem cells and should understand how important to fight them. What is the point of destroying the adult cancer cells if you are living alone? The cancer stem cells lurk in your body. It's a ticking bomb. So that's exactly what we have been doing at the Beljanski Foundation. The Beljanski Foundation is a 501c3 located in New York City. It was incorporated in 1999, and we have been very blessed over the years to be able to create partnerships with a number of academic institutions, mostly here in the States, and we have been able to work with Columbia University on prostate cancer, on ovarian and pancreatic cancer at Kansas University Medical Center. We had a clinical trial at Cancer Treatment Center of America. And all those publications that have resulted from all those partnerships are all available for you to download and share with your doctors at beljanski.org. So what we did is to work with two plant extracts one is called Pao Pereira, coming from South America, and Rovolfia vomitoria, coming from Africa, and both were extracts were developed by my late father, Dr. Mirko Beljanski, was a PhD in molecular biology at the Pasteur Institute in France. And having worked, my father's work, and then having worked with all those academic institutions I told you about on all different kinds of cancer, we said, why not looking at those famous cancer stem cells? And here it is, on ovarian and pancreatic cancer stem cells. Here's in vitro, and then we confirmed in vivo. And what you see is that all those cancer stem cells have disappeared. Sometimes it takes 50 micrograms per milliliter, sometimes 100, but everything has disappeared. We were so excited. Of course, in vitro, it's not enough. So we confirmed in vivo, and here are the publications in mice that were given the extracts by mouse, that's really important, by mouse, for 5 weeks. And you can see that the results are that those cancer stem cells really were destroyed, and that was shown when after the mice after they've been induced cancer, treated from cancer, and then sacrificed, and the tumor had been analyzed. It was shown that the cancer stem cells had disappeared. So we currently have a big study on breast cancer stem cells. And the product that we are using is a mix of Pao Pereira, Rovolfia vomitoria, and green tea extracts. It's not any green tea extract. It's a green tea called a mix of 4 green teas called Oncotea that also my late father identified for their anti-cancer properties. He had a trip in China back in the 80s, and he came back with a big box of teas that were given to him, and he tested them for cancer. Tea was already well known at the time for the antioxidative properties, but not really for cancer. So out of the box that was given to him, he selected for their anti-cancer property, and this is with his handwriting showing how do I go back? Showing which teas he identified as very, very, very anti-C. So we used our partnership with Kansas University Medical Center to confirm what very anti-C meant. And we compared with Lipton, with Bigelow, and with Kumsi, another tea. And we compared all those teas with Oncoti, and the first line here, the first line, it is showing the different teas on breast cancer, and you can see that Oncoti, I mean, this is very, very minimum what is left, because Oncoti has inhibited breast cancer cells much better than the other teas. Then we went on to study on bladder cancer and liver cancer, and we also show that Oncoti was doing much better than the others. Then we went on 4 lines of glioblastoma, and we also had very good results with Oncoti. So let me back up a little bit. Who was my father, and where are those extracts coming from? Well, Mirko Beljanski was a molecular biologist. He was a PhD, and he was one of the first scientists back in the 70s, 80s to look at the environment as a cause of cancer, when at the time everybody's big thing in fashion at the time was understanding the genome and deciding that every disease was going to be solved with genetic medicine. And my father made an observation that there is a big difference between healthy DNA and cancer DNA. And this difference is the same one that can be observed whether it is humans, animals, or plants. In a healthy DNA, there is the two strands are kept together by hydrogen bonds, and that gives the famous double helix structure that we know. But when a DNA becomes cancerous, the two strands of the DNA are kind of kept apart, so much stretched that the hydrogen bonds, which are supposed to keep them together, break. They break. And the more it's open, the greater the rate of synthesis of the DNA. So let's look at what happens when we are DNA is in contact with a carcinogen. Line A, you have a nice, healthy, regular DNA. You put it in contact with some carcinogen, and you can observe in laboratories some beginning of destabilization. In the labs, this process will stop when you stop the contact with the carcinogen, and you can observe a healing of the DNA. But in real life, we are always in contact with more and more carcinogens. So at some point, it comes to the point where the hydrogen bonds are completely broken, it's largely open, and the replication hormones are available to access directly the replication sites, and then you have an increased synthesis of that DNA. So now, what my father found, which was absolutely revolutionary at the time, was those little plant extracts which are able to recognize the cancer DNA and inhibit selectively this cancer DNA. You have here the Pasteur Institute. He tested the Paupera in blue and the Revolfia vomitoria extract in green on different kinds of cancer cell lines. And what you see here, every time, is a nice inhibition with both extracts of those cancer cell lines. So it recognizes different kinds of cancer cells. Now it is selective to cancer cells. And that's the beauty. Here you have astrocyte at the top, which is a normal cell of the brain. And you can see that the paupera extracts, the active is flavoperirine, remains outside of the healthy cell. So the extracts are naturally fluorescent. You see it stays outside. On the other hand, down at the bottom, you have glioblastoma. It is a cancerous cell of the brain. And what you see is that the fluorescence, meaning the extract, has been able to penetrate those cancerous cells. It's even more visible on the UV light, that this extract has been able to target those cancerous cells. It's not wandering anywhere else, meaning no toxicity, no side effects for healthy cells. If you do not have a cancerous or a precancerous cells that will be identified by those plant extracts, you are going to eliminate the product in a matter of hours. So basically, we have two plant extracts here which are able to recognize cancer cells wherever they are located. Men, women, it doesn't matter anymore. For the little story, because you may ask, why have I not heard of that earlier? How come? Well, it is important to know that, in fact, my father became so famous in France that he helped François Mitterrand, former French president, with his prostate cancer when Mitterrand was officially dying with prostate cancer and was not supposed to finish his second term. Terms were 7 years at the time in France. And Mitterrand took my father's products, and that Mitterrand was able to finish his second term. And a number of official people, government who lost the opportunity to have early elections, and official doctors who were furious to see that natural compounds could do better than official medicine, they raided my father's laboratory. They destroyed the laboratory. They did everything to destroy this research, and they destroyed him. There were hundreds and thousands of people who took the streets of France, in France, to ask for the Beljanski products, non-toxic and efficient and non-toxic. That's what it means in French, efficace et non-toxic. And that was completely ignored by the press. Maybe now that is something that people believe more than when I said that like 15 years ago. People was like, what? How come? Well, the press sometimes does not report things. So, because everything was destroyed in France, that's why I started this legacy here in the States, and this non-for-profit, the Beljanski Foundation. And that's maybe why I'm so keen, to salute the people here who are carrying with good legacies. So we have been able to confirm the benefit of those plant extracts on different kinds of cancer. Here you have the different kind of cancer. Here are the publications. Rolvolfia vomitoria, it is the same. We have been able to confirm the activity on different kind of cancer. We have also been able to confirm the synergy with modern chemotherapies, which is really, really important because people don't want to choose. And we have been also able to confirm that there were different and cumulative mechanisms of action, including the very important benefit of anti-inflammatory action. And this is a study that was done on advanced prostate cancer cells which do not respond to hormonal treatment anymore. And the mechanism of action in order to inhibit their growth was here the modulation of NF-kappa B. NF-kappa B is really what is a center for regulation of inflammation, and the cause when it is imbalanced of many kind of diseases. So all this research brings us back to the question for people who have had cancer. I have been through chemotherapy, now what? And I hope that I have been able to provide you with some hope by telling you about those plant extracts which are able to destroy a number of cancer cells without toxicity, without side effects, and also preliminary results on ovarian and pancreatic cancer are showing that, at least in mice, it is destroying cancer stem cells. Again, we have this big study going on breast cancer stem cells, and if the preliminary results are extremely positive. It's done at the Kansas University Medical Center. Again, it is a Pao Pereira, the Wolffia vomitoria, and the famous mix of green teas that are being used together for this research. And I will present the full results at the next upcoming conference in April 25-27 in Austin, Texas. Hopefully we will have all the results on breast cancer by then. If you want to learn more about this research, again, everything is on the website of the Beljanski Foundation, beljanski.org. The products that are used for this research have been provided by Maison Beljanski. I wrote a book a few years ago called Winning the War on Cancer, the Epic Journey Towards a Natural Cure, which is available here outside. It tells all the story about my father and how we were able to start all over again here in the States, which was not an easy thing, but I have to say that America is really the land of second chances, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am to be American and to be have been accepted by the American scientific community. Also, I do not have myself a scientific background. And to thank you all for listening, have a little ebook that you can download on cancer stem cells, which is available to all of you just by screening the little something. So I hope you have questions, because I raced a little bit through, because I think the question part is extremely meaningful and sometimes more in tune with your issues, and really giving a presentation from here and giving you a lot of data which maybe are not be relevant to you.
Hi, Sylvie.
Yes.
John Malanka. Thank you for all you do, and excited for your upcoming conference. In 2017, my wife was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I still don't understand it, because she didn't drink, didn't smoke, was healthy. Her CA19-9 numbers were less than 1.2. All the blood tests came back negative. The only thing that showed up the pancreatic cancer was the ultrasound. We did do stem cells. What's happening now? She lasted 4 months, and we had 4 beautiful months. So all the things that we did do, I'm convinced it could allowed us to have that time together. What are you seeing in your practice? And I know you mentioned pancreatic earlier in your presentation that you're treating. Are you finding success with stem cells?
Yes. So I'm running a foundation. We are not seeing patients. We are not treating people. The plant extracts, of course, are available, and we receive very often, happy testimonials of people, sometimes 20 years later, which is absolutely wonderful. But I am not a doctor, and I am not seeing people. So yes, why fat cancer? There have been can be so many reasons. Unfortunately, so many factors can come together at some point to induce the development of cancer, including these known now intragenerational traumas that can express itself. And pancreatic cancer is one of the most difficult to address because it's not visible, you don't see the tumor, so it is seen very often at a very late stage, which makes it even more difficult to treat. That's one of the reasons why I do believe that those plant extracts are kind of making a difference from the beginning. I told you about me coming to the States from France after the disaster that happened with my father's laboratory. And I had about 100 doctors who were using my father's products who came to what I organized first symposium to tell them, hey, I'm here and I'm decided to continue, that's my commitment. And I had a handful of American doctors who were able to join this symposium. It was in both languages, translation and so on. And one of them was Dr. Michael Schachter from Southern New York. And he listened to that. He was very excited. He was very open-minded. And shortly after, he decided to give the plant extracts to one of his patients who had pancreatic cancer, and he felt the poor guy has really nothing to lose. And most to Dr. Schachter's surprise, really, the poor guy started to get better and better. So Dr. Schachter gave the plant extracts to other patients who also started to get better and better. And that's how Dr. Schachter gave he wrote the first American paper about my father. And I was so excited with this paper. I gave a copy to everybody, including my banker. And my banker was a patient of Dr. Aaron Katz, who at the time was chief of holistic medicine for prostate, holistic urology at Columbia University. And that's how we started to work with Columbia University. So yes, we do have good results on pancreatic cancer historically. We can explain that with the research. We have the publications to back it up. Is it going to work every time? No, because cancer is so much multifactorial that the answer also has to be multifactorial.
Thank you. Is Dr. Hall still work with your?
Dr. Hall has been our director of research since 2006. Yes, and absolutely, he's working with us, and he's the one designing the studies together with the universities we are working with.
Good. Well, thank you. I sent a lot of people your way. Did anybody else have any questions? I didn't want to.
Yes.
Hi there. Hi.
Yes.
I'm Joseph. So with the patients that I work with, I like to take what I call a 3-army approach to cancer. So it's like the first army is we use conventional treatments to get rid of the bulk of the tumor cells. But the second has to deal with getting the cancer stem cells that are left over. And the third has to deal with their habits to make sure that cancer doesn't come back or the cancer doesn't spread. So my question is, when it comes to the cancer stem cell populations themselves, do they act differently? So, like, for example, are the breast cancer stem cells um, showing up different mechanisms than the prostate cancer stem cells or the brain cancer stem cells?
At this point, I don't know, and that's why we are doing the research on different kind of organs. We are also, after breast cancer, we are planning to do prostate cancer, and I think after that we will have done pancreatic, ovarian, breast cancer, prostate cancer, so we'll have a better understanding of how those cancer cells are fighting back against those little plant extracts, and if we are able to inhibit them every time. We will also, the prostate cancer research will take longer because we are going also to deep further into the mechanism of action by which we are really destroying those cancer stem cells.
And when it came to your extract getting the glioblastoma cells, was that administered in a special way that would help it to cross the blood-brain barrier, or did you just go straight to the...
Orally. Those products are always given orally. They are officially dietary supplements, and that's really important to stay that way. So the oral route is really, really important. And indeed, the Pao Pereira crosses the blood-brain barrier, absolutely. So it works on glioblastoma, not only cells, but in people who have had glioblastoma.
I got one more question as well.
Sure.
So when I was initially researching cancer stem cells, I saw something pretty fascinating, how they used green jellyfish genes to track how the cancer stem cells were moving around in the body back in the day. I'm just curious if there's anything new coming out today where, in terms of like diagnostics or tracking in a patient, that could see if there are any like dormant cancer stem cells left over, things like that, so that we can improve outcomes.
Those products, those plant extracts, are naturally fluorescent, meaning you do not need any outside agent to track them. You just, by putting the light in black, you will see where the fluorescence goes, and it goes selectively on cancer cells.
That's amazing.
It is.
I just have one more question.
No, sorry.
Okay.
No.
All right, it's all right.
Come back
I
later.
do like your question,
Come
so.
back later.
Ah, come
We have
on.
one- we have one
These
more.
were all very good questions.
You get back in line, we're
Come
already
back
ahead of
in
time.
after a few more.
Go for it, Julia.
Hi. Thanks so much for your presentation. I'm here.
Sylvie.
Ah, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Line here.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask is how much dosage of this plant extract should we take? And that is it dependent on weight or the tumor size or yeah.
Excellent. So my father was working very closely with doctors, and one of his good friends was called Dr. Markovich, and Dr. Markovich published his notes with all the recommended dosage for different kind of cancer, and I have kept those notes and I have put them at the end of my own book. That said, the rule of thumb is 1 capsule of Pao Pereira per 20 pounds of body weight, and 4 to 6 capsules a day of Revolfia vomitoria. Pao Pereira and Revolfia vomitoria are slightly different. Revolfia vomitoria has more of a hormonal benefit, regulation benefit, can be used also during menopause for hot flashes, these kind of things. Pao Pereira has is less sensitive to hormones, but has also antiviral benefit. So that's also a very important use.
My turn? I just was wondering, I have to always check all of the things that I do with my oncologist in terms of whether it could affect the chemo or cause a side effect that the chemo, cause problems with my Western treatment. Basically, is this something that falls into that category with the supplement, with the tea? Is it something that I would need to run by an oncologist, or are you confident that it's
So the tea has been less tested for all possible side effects because, tea is tea. It has been around for thousands of years. But Paupera and Revolvia vomitoria, we have tested them together with chemotherapy, and what we have seen is that there was an enhancement of the results without added toxicity, and that you can find that on all the publications that are available on the website. So yes, you can take both together. It's not going to add any toxicity to your chemotherapy. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether you should or should not take chemotherapy or a small, low dosage of chemotherapy. I'm not going to interfere with your choice of treatment. I think the most important is to get all the indication you need and make the choice you are comfortable with.
okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Sylvie. Hi. Sylvie, nice. Thank you so much, first of all, for continuing your father's work. It's such an
Thank you.
important part of cancer treatment. So I was wondering if I don't know if this applies to you because you're into stem cells, but would it work for breast cancer metastases in the liver? Would you recommend taking that?
So we have not had a research study specifically on liver cancer, stem cancer cells, but we have studies on liver cancer, and yes, we know how it's working, and
Is there any harm in trying it? I'm asking for somebody else.
is there what?
Who's actually on the live stream. Is there any problem or negative, side effects by taking the herbal tinctures?
Again, the synergy of action together with a number of chemotherapies has been studied and documented,
Well,
and there is no
Yeah.
toxicity associated with those plant extracts. The cytotoxicity studies have been done. The toxicity is extremely low.
Okay.
You would need to take, a mountain of pills a day to achieve a toxic load. So I don't see why people would not benefit of this information.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm doing my best to spread
And for someone,
as well.
thank you. For someone who's been operated on twice for medulloblastoma, I think that's what it's called, a brain tumor. To prevent, would you suggest them taking any of your father's?
So again, Pao Pereira crosses the blood-brain barrier. So Pao Pereira is able to go to brain tumors.
Okay.
Revolvia is not. You don't load yourself with stuff that is not going to go directly to the brain tumor, but Pao Pereira does.
Uh-huh. So that would be used for preventative as well? Because right
It-
now she's in remission.
Because of the low toxicity, yes, it can be taken preventively and it can be taken for the long term. I was in France a few months ago. There was somebody who would say, "Hey, it's me, Michelle. Do you remember me?" And I was like, "Sorry." She said, "I gave you my testimonials 20 years ago." I said, "Okay, you have changed. Well, I have changed.
Wow.
We have changed."
That's unbelievable.
But she was so happy because she had breast cancer 20 years ago, and she told me, "I felt so good with those products. I don't take them all the time, but I take them like 2 months in the spring, 2 months in the fall, and I feel like I am doing something for myself continuously." And I wish, everybody can come back 20 years later and say, "Hey, here I am."
I wish as well. Yes, thank you.
That is an absolutely beautiful story. I love that. wonderful. I mean, your products, and Sylvie and her team are outside also. They're an exhibitor, so if you want to stop by their table and look into their products a little bit more, feel free to do that. They're out in the foyer. So, Richard Howard.
Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, Sylvie. I'm the one that emailed you lots of questions over the last few years, and we did a podcast recently. So I just wanted to add something to back up what you were saying. I just had a woman that was diagnosed with B-cell lymphoma, and she opted to go through chemotherapy. We simultaneously gave her the Beljanski products, particularly Oncobel Pro at the time. Wamabel wasn't even available, but nonetheless, and we did other things, and I guided her in other ways, but I think that was a big part of the fact that halfway through her chemo, there was no evidence, and she had multiple lymph nodes above and below the waist. I mean, it was definitely all over the place. And halfway through, they just checked to see if it was being effective at all, and there was no evidence, and they just continued the rest of the cycles, because that's what they do, and she didn't want to worry that maybe she should have. And we did some other things, but she had no symptoms or side effects other than her hair falling out. Her energy was good, no weight loss. She did really well. And I've been using these products. I even use it on my dog. They have a vet version. So I just wanted to throw that little testimonial out there because that was recent and that was awesome. When does the breast cancer study look like that's going to be maybe published? Do you have any idea?
Well, the aim for me is to have the data, the raw data to present in April in Texas. And then, of course, the publication is going to follow.
Very cool. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
doing everything you did to keep your dad's work going here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, Sylvie and her team have a conference in April, so they have a flyer as well, and there's one in your goodie bag.
Hey, so my name is Eric. So I practice here. I have a question for you. What can you comment on? I usually measure circulating tumor cells, whether they currently have cancer or they're on remission. But what's your study on that as far as decreasing circulating tumor cells? And most of them are 50-60% are cancer stem cells. And my first question is, how long are they going to be on that? Do you pulse it, or they can continue taking it forever? Is there any resistance to the cancer stem cells?
So, cancer stem cells now, the research that we have been doing is, in the lab, since in animals, there is no clinical trial right now on cancer stem cells in humans. What I can tell you is that what we see is that so many people have been taking the products are not getting back cancer. That it's also working not only on the adult cancer cells, but also on the cancer stem cells, and that's why we decided to do this research and start this research on cancer stem cells. When we had the research on pancreatic cancer stem cells, the study was on mice, and we saw that the mice treated with the Revolvia vomitoria or the Paupera, when they were sacrificed, they had no metastasis at all. So that answers part of the question. Is it sufficient for the scientific level? No, but that's definitely what put us on the way of this line of research.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. It was such a pleasure having you here again.
Thank
We're
you.
like family. So, très bien, très bien.
Merci.